Hello Admirals and welcome back to my channel where I talk to you about Battlefleet Gothic, the space fleet game based in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. In this video I'm going to talk to you all about Nova Cannons. I'm going to talk to you about the rules of Nova Cannons, what they are as well. Basically they're the only artillery piece in the actual entirety of the game essentially. And they're accessible to Imperial fleets and Adeptus Mechanicus and sometimes fan-made Space Marines. But they're widely used in Imperial and Adeptus Mechanicus fleets. I'm not going to explain what they are, the rules behind them, and why they're so feared in many respects. Rightly or wrongly so. So first and foremost, what is the Nova Cannon? And it's these giant guns that they mount on the prow of Imperial vessels. And they are huge cannons, essentially, that fire really high velocity macro shells at long range at their targets. And in the original Blue Book, there were different rules. So in the original one, the original rules had you guess the range. And if then you would guess the number of centimeters that the ship was further away from you, 30, 45, whatever it is. You would then track along and you would hope that this little hole was over the top of the stem of that. Now, that changed as part of the FAQ, and the main reason changes is because it's really easy to it was really easy to game, basically, and do a bit of range finding. If you had like 3 or 4 of these in a fleet, then the first one could be speculative, and then you kind of get your eye in, and you could almost then kind of guarantee 1 or 2 hits, and then you'd realize, you know your opponent, how big the board is, you know how fast your opponent's gone, you can do a little bit of head math to kind of work it out. So these would be a lot more reliable in hitting. And so then when the FAQ came in, they changed it, and it's no longer guess range now. Instead, you use a scatter dice. Now, critically with the Nova Cannon as well, if you are crippled, you no longer can use the weapon. So if this ship was down to half its hit points, it can no longer fire. It can also no longer fire if it's on brace for impact orders either. Now, like I said, this is basically artillery piece, and even though there's that within 30 centimeters you can't fire it, the closer the target is, up to that 30 centimeters, the better you actually get from dice rolls, essentially. So if it's over 60 centimeters, you're going to be rolling 3 dice with your scatter dice. If it's between 45 to 60, you're rolling 2 and 1 scatter. And if it's 30 centimeters to 45, you're rolling 1d6 and the scatter dice. And that will become, the reason for that will come apparent in a second. So how do you actually use the Nova Cannon? Okay, so let's just pretend that this is over 30 centimeters while in shot, and say it's over 60 centimeters. And you would get your scatter dice, you would get your template, and you would center. You don't need to center this over one single ship. You can try and place it over multiples if there were multiples in here. For example, if I had this ship here. If I wanted to try and hit both of them, I could try and put that little center hole over them. Now, it probably won't hit both of them, but it could do maybe a point of damage. It might scatter, something like that, right? So you're really kind of playing the odds. Typically, though, you select your target, you place the top over the stem, and that's what you're going to be aiming for. And then you roll the scatter dice to see if it hits. Okay, I have not hit at all. And then what you would do is you'd count this up as centimeters, so 1, 1, and 5, so 7 centimeters, and you would measure in the direction 7 centimeters, and then you would place a blast marker as a miss. Let's say then, for example, if it was within the 45 to 60, you would roll 2d6. I've missed again, and then that would be a 12 centimeters. So I'd measure 12 centimeters out and put a blast marker in front of it. And then it's the same again, then with it between 30 to 45, you roll and you see if it hit. And I missed, and it's 6 centimeters this way. Now, critically, with why it's good if it's within 30 to 45 and 1d6, if there's a 1 rolled on this, even with a miss, the hole will still be over the stem, and that will still be counted as a hit. Now, what happens if I actually can roll a hit? Hey, there you go. That was actually my first try. Honest to God's truth. So what happens if I do hit? Well, if I do hit, the amount of dice that would be measuring away, it become irrelevant. You've hit with your Nova Cannon. And so then all you do is roll a 1d6 for that hit, and that is the amount of damage that will be caused on this ship. So I've rolled a 2, so I would cause 2 points of damage. Nova Cannons are not negated by shields, so that would, if this ship has 2 shields, which it does, it would cause 2 points of damage and put it on the shields. So the shields would protect the ship. If I cause 3 points of damage, 2 would be on the shield, and then 1 would go through. And then that'd be 1 point of damage on the ship, and you would roll on the critical hits table as per usual. Negated by shields, Eldar do get their Hollow and Shadow Field saves against this initial hit. So they get their 2+ save against that. So Eldar kind of, janky things that they are, get it. But if it hits and they do get the 2+ save and they save it with a 2, for example, well, I wouldn't save them, but if they saved it, a blast marker goes on it. So they do get the save. So just a couple of extra things with the Nova Cannon. It's unaffected by lock-on, so you can't lock it on and try and re-roll. And it's unaffected by reload ordnance as well, like I said, so that's cool. Now, when your ship selects another ship to aim for, the opposing player needs to decide right then and there if they're going to brace for impact. They can't wait for this roll to be rolled. So they've got to wait, they've got to decide whether they're going to brace for impact before the scatter dice is rolled and whether they know whether it's a hit or not. So make sure you ask the opposing player, if they wish to brace for impact before you roll it. And one last thing with Nova Cannons is their line of sight. So if asteroids are in the way, or other celestial phenomenon, for example, planets, etc., you can't shoot through them. You can't shoot through asteroids. You need to be able to see your target. So an easy tactical thing that your opponent may try and do is try and hide behind asteroids and things like that to try and avoid being shot at by the Nova Cannon. So bear that in mind if you're trying to use them. Now, tactically, I would say, as an Admiral's Agreement, have no more than 1 per 500 points. It used to be more important when it was guess range and easier to do. But I'd still stick to that as a bit of an Admiral's, Gentleman's, Ladies' Agreement. And the other point I'd probably make with this is, from a tactics perspective, they're really good at breaking up fleets. So if you don't want your enemies to be bunched up, and so you can control where they may move by using that. You can also frighten, because they need to make a decision on whether they're going to be bracing. You can be continuously targeting, say, carriers and things like that. That's what I would always aim my Nova Cannons at, carriers, to try and then get ordnance superiority. Or maybe even fast-moving ships that you don't want them to outflank you, etc., etc. But getting ships to brace halves their weapons and halves their ordnance output, etc., etc. So you want to try and maintain that initiative and control the board. So it's a good way, coupled especially in Imperial fleets, where using your torpedoes to break up fleets, to then try and pick off and isolate pockets. It's a really good weapon from that perspective, and there's no other really weapons in the game that can fire that long distance. There's really nothing apart from maybe the Planet Killer's Armageddon gun, which can get up to 90. Everything else is basically capped at 60 centimeters. So the ability to be able to reach out and hit an opponent and potentially even cripple them. If you hit and then roll a 6 on the dice, that cripples a cruiser. So the ability to be able to do that early on is significant, but I wouldn't rely on it as a crutch per se. Not certainly anymore, because of the old rules being removed, and now it's scatter dice. So less scary, nerfed as they say, but still a powerful tactical weapon that can be employed in Imperial and Ad Mech fleets, certainly. There you have, Admirals, the more humble Nova Cannon, widely used in Imperial and Adeptus Mechanis fleets. I always typically take 1 in my Imperial fleets, because while the scatter dice makes it more random now than the old school guess range, it can do some damage, and it can really put in some work sometimes. But the real threat of it is being able to use it tactically to break up fleets and make them go places and not bunch up. So typically, like I said, I would probably have one in my fleet. Really, the Admiral's agreement is you have no more than one per 500 points. And I would probably stick to that rule. It was more so much because of the guess range sort of situation, but less so now. But I still would keep to that rule, Admirals, if you could. So let me know in the comments some of your fun and games with Nova Cannons over the years. I know there's plenty of stories on these. They are awesome. My favourite one being using one of these to completely blow up an emissary Tau ship. One-shotted it. It was glorious. And then I did it again in the exact same game. 2 emissaries blown up. Hit 6, hit 6. So it can be incredibly swingy, but it can be hilarious at the same time. And so let me know in the comments, like, subscribe, all that jazz, yeah. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the video on the humble Nova Cannon, folks.